are listening to the Airline Selection Podcast, where we bring you insights to help you succeed at airline selections. This podcast is brought to you by Airline Selection Program. Please welcome your host, airline captain and major airline recruiter, Guillaume Degroote.
Welcome to a new episode of the Airline Selection Podcast, where we bring you insights and expert tips to help you with your airline selection. Today again, I have Charlotte with me. We're going to talk about her access to command on the 747-400. How are you doing, Charlotte, today?
I'm feeling really excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Happy to be here again.
Likewise. So we talked about your access to the 747-400. How many years did you spend as a co-pilot?
I was a first officer or co-pilot for 16 years.
16 years. But how many on the 747-400?
On the 747, it was exactly 16 years.
Oh, yeah. Right. Because you spent 3 on the
737.
And 16 years on that. So you knew the machine quite well.
I was, let's call it the granny of the 747, the queen of the skies. Yeah, I think I was one of the ladies who was on the 747 for the longest time at that period. And I knew this aircraft. I mean, I was like wearing a jacket. I just put it on my back and I was going. And I knew all the inside, outside, even the cockpit, but also what happened back there in the cabin.
Even the?
Well, everything with the seats, the cargo holds, everything. I knew all the tips
everything.
and tricks and everything. Absolutely.
And so at some point, it was time for you, your number came. It was time to become a captain.
Yeah, and it came a lot sooner than I expected.
19 years is soon?
19 years was soon, absolutely.
Right.
At that time, it was, the captains, I was 41 years old, and the average age was a bit older of a captain long haul with KLM in that period. Because, as you know, it's always the thrill ride of aviation. We go fast, we go slow, we stop. Things happen on the planet, on the earth. And then you don't decide, in fact, on your career.
You don't decide.
That's what I want to convey as a message, yeah.
So what's interesting is some airlines like Air France, you have to go back to short haul after a long haul career as a co-pilot to take your command, and then you will go back to long haul if you wish to. At BA, you don't have this constraint. You can go first officer long haul to captain long haul if you want. Of course, then what it means is you're going to have to wait a long time before you get your fourth stripe. 20 years is common, I think, same for all of these airlines. And so you decided to go that route because it's possible at KLM to do a transition in this way.
At that time, it was possible. And if I'm not mistaken, nowadays they have to go back to Europe before coming back to long haul. Yeah.
But what's the advantage of going from right to left on long haul? What's the advantage?
But you know the machine.
You know the machine.
You know the machine, you know the operation,
you know the routes, yes.
You know the way of life. Nothing is a surprise. You know what to expect. However, you have another view on the world from the left seat.
Yes.
And it makes a difference. However, from the very start of my career, I was always observing captains and taking notes like, that's handy. That's smart. That's not so smart. So I was really already preparing myself. And when decisions had to be made or operational issues had to be handled, I was always being the second brain. I was always actively trying to figure things out by myself and preparing myself in a way for captaincy. Not actively thinking, I will do that later as a captain, but just that was my way of thinking and my way of behaving in a cockpit. I was always actively involved. And it was interesting because observing other people, oh my God, these are life lessons, and you pick out the good stuff and you cherry pick the best stuff, and you let the poor stuff, you just let it aside.
Yeah,
and
some people will inspire you as well in their style, in the way, and you go, I want to be like this person. Yes,
that's I still have an image of somebody I really wanted to be like, and I think I more or less managed. I hope but I felt really confident going to that left-hand seat because I was prepared. I knew what was about to happen.
Was it challenging still?
It was challenging, but that was because of the time span I had to prepare myself. Because within KLM, we have an oral exam to do. That it takes a couple of hours, and you are there with two instructors. And they will question you basically not on the machine, but on the general procedures of KLM. We have what we call the basic operation manual, the BOM. And
bomb.
the bomb, and now it's the operational part, OMA,
Part
but
A,
exactly. But so the basic operation manual, you had to know it from A to Z.
Yeah.
You just need to know
It's a
it.
big manual for anyone who. It's like at least 500 pages, maybe close to 1,000 in some airlines. So it's a big manual.
And
Written in very
everything
small
is in there, and you had to demonstrate to those guys that you knew the rules, and on top of that, you had to demonstrate that you had to own your fourth stripe, because sometimes you have to go beyond the rules to find a safe and legal solution, as Guillaume always teaches us. When you decide something, well, is it safe, is it legal, and is it efficient at the very moment when I use it, regarding the time I have to decide it. So that was basically what the exam was about. I got my captaincy on a very short notice. Honestly, I was next in line to go to the training. All positions were taken, and one colleague broke his leg. Something like that. And then they said, oh, next in line, it's you. So I had like 2 months to prepare for that big oral exam. Boy, I studied. I studied a lot. And then you just train and you imagine scenarios in your head. What do I do with this, with that? And it's not only about planes, but it's also about human interaction. You have a drunk steward. What do you do? Do you leave him alone? How do you help him maybe? What's going on, etc. So I thought it was really interesting. The human side, the psychological side of the whole captaincy was something really to my liking as well. Yeah, I like to lead the team and be there for my people.
Did you, towards the end of your, did at some point, of the 16 years on long haul, did you feel a bit of a boredom or routine, these long flights over the Atlantic, and did you ever get bored a bit and look forward to something else?
Yeah, but you have to keep yourself challenged, and if it's not in the cockpit, it's somewhere else. I mean, I study languages, I learn other skills somewhere else. I trained for sports events, and I was lucky enough to have time at home, but also when I was somewhere abroad to train or study or do something else. Long-haul flying can be boring. However, what is nice is that you never fly with the same people, basically.
Right.
So you get to know other people and you get insights and stories. And I can tell you, at night with KLM, we didn't read books. I know many colleagues in other airlines, they just read books. That was not what we did with KLM. However, we talked. And the cockpit was an open, safe space. Stewardesses came in a lot, and we had these long talks about life and things like that. And it was a life school also for me. From a very young age, I was listening to captains telling stories about flying, about family life, about hobbies, other skills.
Yeah,
it was amazing. Yeah, having a coffee at hand, something to eat. We eat a lot in the cockpit. And we just get comfortable. You have to make yourself comfortable, because it can be tiresome, it can be long, it can be boring. But you have the reins in your hands. You have to make the best out of it yourself. Don't count on others. I mean, you have to do it yourself.
Yeah, a lot of what I hear a lot from first officers, particularly first officers, because you take less initiative as a first officer. You just don't have the authority, and so the initiative, when the dispatcher comes into the flight deck, well, they turn to the captain. Even at BA, when it was your sector, the captain would often say, it's his sector, so the dispatcher was trying to give you some authority, but it would never really work. It was, at the end of the day, the captain signs. So it can be a bit boring. I certainly felt it. I certainly felt that it was a bit boring. Some people build businesses on the side. Yeah. Real estate businesses is a famous one, or they will try and do other things. Not so much because they want to become billionaires, but more because they want something else to do where they have initiative, something challenging in their
life. I do agree, yeah.
But so it came for you now, you became a captain. Now you were properly challenged with something new, to not just to learn, but also training to get through and new responsibilities to master. So tell us a little bit about the training and about the first few months as a captain.
So the training was really quick, because I think we had 4 simulator details going from right to left, something like that. Something like that. And then a couple of route flights, not a lot.
Oh.
and off you went.
You didn't have to do every continent back again?
I don't remember. I think we had like three mandatory sectors like Africa, North America, and Asia or something.
Oh, yeah,
But
okay.
we didn't cover everything. I mean, because South American can be very challenging.
True.
Yeah. We didn't do any. There were a couple of mandatory flights to do, but I can't remember that it was a long process. It was rather short, because I started my simulator training at the end of May, and I was graduated as a captain, my 4th stripe, somewhere during the summertime. So it was like 2 months later or something. It was really quick. Yeah.
Yeah, so you did just sim and then just flight? Or did you do just sim and flight, and then flight?
No, just sim and then flight. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because at Emirates it was just sim, sim and flight,
I know.
just flight.
No, you finish the sim, you go online, and there you go, and you fly. Yeah.
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay, good.
My first experience, so my Czech ride was a challenging one, a very nice one. I was going to New York City in summertime. There again, lined up for one runway. Oh, after all, KLM 6, whatever. What was the call sign again? 641, go back there. And then, oh no, to end up to land on a third runway. So I decided to make a visual approach, basically, because we had reprogrammed the FMS for a couple of times already, and I was fed up with that. And it was crystal clear weather, summertime. So there's the runway. Switched off the flight directors and just went for it, basically. And that.
So that was during your line training?
Yeah, line check.
Line check. Oh, yeah, it was your line check?
Yeah. To become a captain, yeah. But I mean, you have to handle
How did you manage
with
to go around? Did you manage to brief the go around?
Of course, I managed to
Wow.
brief the go around, and the instructor got at the First of all, he got upset with me. He said, "Well, very good handling, good decision, but remember, a go around would have been challenging. You wouldn't have flight directors. You switch them off." I say, "Well, listen." No, toga buttons, they come, either switches on or off, they will be there. They will lead me to 2,000 feet at least, and then I can just reprogram the whole thing. And he said something like, oh, well, I was on another plane before, I forgot about this. Yeah. So that was a really funny situation. And on top of that, I had a passenger in the cockpit during my line training check.
Oh, wow.
Because we had some guest passengers and the flight was completely overloaded full. And there was one girl, she was a pilot with KLM. I didn't know her. She was an Airbus pilot. And she asked me permission to come in the cockpit to have a jump seat in order to travel with the rest of her family who was already on board.
Because she had a KLM badge, so
She
that's why she
did.
was allowed.
Yeah, and she was allowed. And I said, and she was, oh, but it's your line check. I said, look, line check or not, I'm just doing my job. Come with me. And she was like, wow. And we had so much fun. It was great. So I went to New York, and I remember having my first drink, not alcoholic, I don't drink, but in the bar, and the instructor went, well, here you go, your 4th stripe. He gave me already
He gave
on
it to you in New York?
Yeah. He said, you're good to go. So that
Wow.
was a real achievement.
Well,
I was
that's quite
so
challenging,
happy.
eh? Switching to a visual approach like this on a...
Yeah. But the thing is, when you are in the flow, you just do what you have to do. I don't know. Sometimes it's like... not that you get superpowers, but you're so in the
zone.
moment.
You're in the zone.
You're in the zone,
yeah.
and you just do things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can tell. When real adrenaline kicks in, you do amazing things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is actually where you need to be in order to succeed at your interviews, after having practiced at the advanced interview practice sessions enough, maybe taking a 1-to-1 if you want. Come a point, we want you to arrive at the selection in the zone, in your area of performance, in an area that's becoming for you an area of control, you know, and that wonderful things happen.
Yeah, exactly. And so for me, it was kind of natural to say, well, program, another runway. Oh, well, just drop it. We just land. There's a plane. Basically, what's my job? I'm a pilot. I fly planes. There's a runway. I have to land it. Let's land it. And that's basically what happened
Very
during my
interesting.
check ride. Yeah.
Well, my upgrade flight, my line check was much more quiet, much more like we hardly talked. It was Dubai to Karachi, out and back, and very nice first officer, but it was like everything was like that, and I landing back in Dubai, and you know. It was much more quiet, so to say, but I'm impressed. I'm impressed.
Well, yeah, it was fun. When I look back at it, I say, oh my God, what happened there? But I just, you're in the zone, as you say, and you just perform. You just do it.
We're coming to the end of our series soon, and can you tell us after that just one thing. The next simulator on the 747 as a captain, was that challenging? Because we often say that the first sim after...
I can't remember it clearly, so it must have been just a normal check ride. Nothing
Yeah,
special.
you had a lot of experience on the
I
747.
did have a lot of experience on that machine, honestly, yeah.
Can you tell us about one flight as a captain where something happened that was interesting, where you had to make a real decision?
Yeah, Yeah, I do remember a thing. However, maybe we can just add that I was a captain on the 777 as well.
Yeah, so how long did you stay on the 747?
5 years.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately KLM phased them out. They
Yeah,
started to sell them and I had to make a decision, stay till the very end or not. So I made a decision because of my family life. I have a daughter. She was still in kindergarten. And so I preferred doing my training when she was still in kindergarten, that I could take her out of school when to my liking, etc. So for personal reasons, after 5 years, I left my beautiful Queen of the Skies and I went to the 777, and I stayed for another 5 years. And then COVID came, but that's another story. Yeah. But on my 777 my time on the 777, I had to make a decision, and I mentioned it. Captaincy is also knowing where the lines are coloring a bit next to the lines whenever necessary.
So you were on the 74 then when this happened, or
777 already?
You transitioned to
and I remember a story about captaincy there because nowadays with passengers having access to internet, sometimes they're better informed than we are. Oh. So I remember a flight going to Accra, Ghana. It was, I think maybe in like 2019 or something, heading there, happy-go-lucky, nothing wrong, everything fine. And at one point, the chief purser comes inside the cockpit and says, "So where are we going to land?" So, well, in Accra, what do you mean? Yeah. She says, the passengers are chit-chatting amongst them that all planes are deviating. They are all in an alternate airport. So where is our alternate? Where are we heading to? I say, well, I'm not aware that we have to divert. So
you would know from ATC.
Yeah, let's figure something out. So we got the information. We were looking for information, and it happened that the ILS seems to be, it was unserviceable. And the weather on paper was not good enough to shoot an alternative approach. So instead of, going there, because I think our nerve was broken, there was something going on and technically it was impossible. Yeah, so there was something wrong. I mean, and there was no IFR procedure to get your plane into there. Okay. So I thought, okay, fine. The weather was like 4 kilometers in haze with some clouds. But from experience, I know sometimes they just don't adapt the weather.
Yeah.
And it could be better when you get there. And I had fuel. So I called the chief pilot office and I said, look, can I do a look-see? That's an old procedure. It wasn't in the books any longer. But I say, can I go there and just shoot the approach and whatever? If I don't see I have ground contact or whatever, I just make a go around and I decide to divert. Then he said, look, you're the captain. Keep it safe and just go for it.
So which visibility requirements did you have then? Because then normally if it's how would you do your look-see? How would you shoot? How would you shoot an approach?
For a visual, I can't recall the real requirements for a visual. Was it?
Maybe in 5K.
But 5K or something like that, I guess. But anyway, so it was not really in the books, but I knew from experience that probably going there, the weather would be fine and there was no threat to safe operations. So I said, and I of course I conferred with my chief pilot, but I said, can I do that? He said, yeah, go and try. And I went there and we saw the airfield from miles ahead. So once again, visual approach. That's and I landed the plane. And the people were so happy with me. The station manager was completely thrilled, like, wow, you made it great. I say, well, why wouldn't you make it in this kind of weather? He says, yes, we were really surprised that people would divert. But that's the difference between sticking to the rules all the time and just being a bit short-sighted and say, okay, on paper it's not good, this and that. And I think being a captain is also trying to stay on the safe side and be creative with the operations. So that's one of the things that I learned, that you can provide for your own solutions as long as it stays
they're reasonable and safe, and efficient.
Yeah.
What did the ATC say when it comes to the weather?
Oh, they gave us an ATIS and they gave us I think a pilot report later or something, like a visibility 10 kilometers or more. I mean, I think people got stressed just on paper. Let's put it this way. And yeah, that was one of the things I said. Here, I earned the money for the 4 stripes. They pay me. I earned it. Yeah.
But just to understand, because I've never had this look-see procedure. So you would just go at a fairly high enough altitude, above MSA or something.
Yeah,
like
above
that?
MSA, and then you would and if you have visual contact, there's no reason not to land. I mean,
absolutely.
So, but I think most of the other companies having diverted, they did it just making the decision already long beforehand, and like, this is a no. We don't have the weather, we don't have the equipment. Let's go somewhere else.
Right.
And I thought, well, let's push it a little bit forward, and just that's why it was called the look-see. It doesn't exist any longer in the books, but that was what procedure I grew up with.
That's so interesting.
So
interesting. Yeah, sometimes in some third world countries as well, the actual weather report, the weather station's not at the airport exactly. It's slightly offset, and it can get foggy there when it's actually clear at the airport.
There we go.
And the opposite can be true as well.
Oh yes,
When
surprises they do happen. The surprises, of course, yeah. But that's one of the things that I thought, this is being a captain. This is just what they expect from me, and I was happy to carry that out and to be successful. Yeah.
You had issues with passengers. You have one that comes to mind? Dealing with a difficult passenger?
Absolutely, yeah. I had I lived a couple of them. So normally it's the cabin staff. They take care of those cases, but sometimes they call for help.
Yeah.
And even though I'm a small lady, I think seeing the small lady with the 4 stripes would surprise people, and we had these lovely exchanges. So at one point I had somebody who wanted really to leave the airplane on an intermediate stop. We flew from Amsterdam to Sint Maarten and then further to Curaçao, and the passengers for Curaçao obviously had to stay on board till Curaçao, but there was one guy who said, oh well, Sint Maarten is fine for me, I stay here. But he wasn't allowed. I mean, legally, he was not allowed. It was not his destination.
Finding the bag and all that.
Except for that, there's a whole bunch of other administration to do. And he was making a fuss with the cabin staff. Well, we're here. The door is open. Let me go and stuff like that.
And legally, you can't really, if they don't want to fly, you kind of have to let them leave, right?
Yeah. But it was, and I went to them, and so first of all, you approach it with the understanding. Okay, I see you really want to go there, but you see, rules are rules, and so you want to challenge the rules. I can show you the rules if you wish, but look on your ticket. And so I could calm down the situation, and that was fine. And another one coming into my mind.
So he ended, you tried to explain maybe the impact on the other passengers?
Yeah, but I just re-explained the rules. I said, look, you want me to explain the rules? I mean, I can show you the book. This is what this is what will happen. I was, but that, I think there's a little advantage of being a woman in these cases.
Yeah.
And the posture I have, I think I surprise people, and they're, oh my God. And then, and something clicks and something snaps, and a different atmosphere comes along.
Yeah, he didn't want to displease you, basically. He wanted
I have no idea why, but it worked. And a second one was a passenger who was giving nasty comments to a stewardess who was a bit of bigger size, and there I had to step in and say, you cannot do that. And I was really
so
there.
I was the cabin for that as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I was a lot in the cabin. I spent a lot of time in the cabin because most of the time with a multiple crew, we had 1/3, sometimes half of the flight off, and we would divide the rest we had in 2 parts. And I always had one part for myself to sleep, to rest, and always one part I gave, and I happily. Spent that with my cabin staff, with my passengers, and everybody. Yeah, that's what I did as a captain, and I loved it. I met so many nice people, interesting people.
See, this is very different because at BA it was encouraged to walk around the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for you anyway, physically, and it's also good because they figured out by surveying their customers that they enjoy speaking to their pilots, seeing their pilots. And so it was encouraged. At Emirates, it was the opposite. It was more, you're supposed to be in the flight deck. We don't want your focus to be distracted. And the cabin staff are trained to deal with this. Yeah. And if something happens, an argument or something, we want you to remain on the flight deck. Mm-hmm. I think the idea is if it gets into something more physical during a flight, that then really you should remain behind that flight deck door and protected for everyone's safety. So it's different atmosphere here. I had to go, it will go beyond the scope of what we're discussing today.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I had a handcuffing situation.
Oh, you did, yeah.
But it was managed. In this case, you would stay behind the cockpit door because they have to manage it there at the back.
But can I ask you something about
Yeah.
it? Because for cohesion with your cabin staff, it's absolutely, it's so important to show your face. It was like a honor thing for me to go from the very first, from the cockpit to the tail, to see the back galley and to say hi to my girls and boys there every single time. And they were surprised to see me and they were so happy about it. But at the same time, you could sniff the atmosphere in the cabin. You could encourage them to work because sometimes their work can be very challenging as well. And I was there to encourage them and to maybe to help out a little bit and to have a little chat. And I think this is one of the things we haven't talked about yet, but the human side of this job is getting more and more important.
Yeah.
We are not just big men with mustaches, not me in a cockpit flying planes, but there's a whole new kind of work you get on top of the flying. You manage your crew, passengers in a demanding society where people speak up nowadays. And for me, I thought it was really interesting. I loved it. I'm a people's person, and I really had a ball having that challenge on top of my my flying career. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for us, it was just a different company culture. Of course, it's good to know your crew, but we flew a lot. We had so many sectors. Getting to know each of the crew would be difficult. And I went with this company culture. I got out the flight deck a few times to solve some things. Once to fix a toilet, actually.
Yeah, well, these are the things we did as well.
The purser didn't manage to fix, so I went to fix it. Another time, it was during pre-flight. We had to offload someone, and I felt that the cabin crew asked for my help. They said, "Hey, come and tell them and explain to them why." So I went, but otherwise, we typically wouldn't go. There's advantages in both, and I admire you giving your rest to your crew because to me, my rest was so critical.
Was sacred, but I think you had different working circumstances. I mean,
maybe.
And let's be honest, I work part-time, Guillaume.
Oh, yeah, let's talk about that, actually.
I work part-time.
Let's talk about that. So we're going to finish this fantastic season with you where our viewers get to know yet another side of aviation. You will now have seen Calvin with British Airways, Victor with Air France. Now we've got the KLM seen from a feminine point of view as well, having to fight your way to earn your spot and to make it all the way into a fruitful career. You had some options open to you, and you were telling me that you went part-time quite early on in your career.
Quite early in my career.
What was the reason?
A couple of reasons. First of all, the salary was not bad at all.
Yeah.
So I had enough
you pay
money.
Less tax, in fact.
Yeah.
So in fact,
and so I had enough to live comfortably, and I thought, well, when you're young, and it's life is happening right now. So having enough money, and on top of that, because being part-time, you have time to spend it. That's a win-win situation. So I did it more out of that view at the first place. And then at the beginning of my career, till 2005, I was still living in Holland. So I spent my time there. And then when I moved to France, because now I'm living in France, it has been 20 years. And I needed more time to commute. I mean, I allocated myself more time to commute. And that was my reasons to work part-time, is that life is short, enjoy it.
Yes.
And then I have the best of all the worlds. I have the flying life with enough money to have a good life out of the flying. So that was
you made a decision to have a life flying and a separate life, so to say.
Yeah, the work-life balance for me was really important.
So getting into instructing and all of that was something that, did you consider it at some point?
I was asked to become an instructor by the company at several occasions. However, they always demanded at the same time to sign in for 100% full-time flying again.
Yeah.
And that's since my quality of life was...
it was a choice.
It was a choice, yeah, and I opted for my own personal well-being on top of the flying. But I can tell you, Guillaume, that I instructed a lot, just not being an instructor,
course,
because
being
a captain and even as a first officer, the atmosphere in my flight deck was always very open. There are no stupid questions, only stupid answers. So people would spontaneously come to me and ask things. And since, especially on the 747, I knew everything for so many years, and I had the reputation of being somebody who was willing to help others. Well, 1 and 1 makes 2, and I instructed people just by the way I am, and I loved it. I absolutely loved, and this is what I'm doing now again.
Yeah, this is
Since
what
you
we do.
recruit,
This is what we do.
you recruited me, and I can just continue passing on my knowledge and skill, and for people to have the opportunity to join this wonderful career. It's amazing. Yeah.
What I find very interesting is the different pilots that we've met through this series. You can see there's different paths that you can take, and what's in my case, I went through 2 major airlines, and at BA. I also had a time when I was part-time, and I pictured myself more as being someone who would only fly. I didn't picture myself somehow, although I loved the airline, as going into the office. I don't know why. Maybe because I was French and it was all going to be very British, which I have nothing against. I love England, and I love being with British colleagues. But somehow at Emirates, I felt that I really wanted to get to see what was on the other side.
I see.
I had this pull for that, which brought me a lot. And you will see, just to summarize on this, that being in these major airlines is fantastic because you have so much choice. You can decide to do like Charlotte and like what I did at BA, to have a life and then another life on the side of flying, maybe another project, something that's important to you, someone who is important to you, whatever it is, live somewhere else, which is possible
abroad,
in this case. Or you can do like Victor did and get really involved and have, in the case of Victor, a 100% career with a lot of it in instructing. Some others will go deep into management and become managers and have another level of an interesting life. All of this is open to you in large airlines. It's true also of large low-cost airlines, which will give you opportunities. But in major airlines, there's a dimension to it that is second to none.
Absolutely,
And,
I do agree. And and you can, if ever you have the chance to get enrolled in a major airline, I would say that the possibilities are not limitless, but there is a lot. I mean, you can stick to Europe flights, long haul, short haul, become an instructor, do some management functions, instruct in the simulator, maybe, or online. There's so many possibilities, and it's a rewarding job in a way also, because you don't only operate an airplane, but you tag along a whole crew, and it's an adventure on the human side also.
Charlotte, thank you so much for the time you spent with us. It was an honor to be with you today.
The honor is mine,
series.
Guillaume. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah.
Good. So I hope you enjoyed this whole season that we spent with Charlotte. If you want to get close to her and get to know her more and have more of her teaching, which is super valuable in recruitment and also in communication and in languages as well, which she teaches with another organization. But of course, you can get that as well. Well, come and join us. You know that inside Advanced Interview course, every Monday, we have Advanced Interview practice sessions. We also have them on Tuesdays in French at the time of this recording. Charlotte intervenes during these sessions, and you can also have her one-to-one if you want to have a consultation with her. Remind me how many languages you speak, Charlotte?
Well, I speak 3 fluently, 1 kind of fluently, and another 2, another 3. I have the basics right, yeah.
So you could give consultations in French, in Dutch, in English, obviously, in Portuguese.
More or less, I can help people in Portuguese, and then I have my basics right for Spanish, Japanese, and German. But I'm not at that level to have people, started in the aviation business in these languages. No.
Great. So in any case, Charlotte is available. Maybe if you're a lady pilot or future lady pilot, you will want to be with her more than with other instructors. You'll have an affinity, or maybe a language thing. If you are maybe Dutch, or if you're Flemish, maybe you'll want to have some instruction in Flemish. It's possible in any case. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like the video and to subscribe to follow our next episodes.
This podcast was brought to you by Airline Selection Program, a company that is focused on helping you succeed at airline selections. Our flagship course, Advanced Interview Course, has helped hundreds of pilots just like you become successful. Visit our website at online.airlineselectionprogram.com and find out how you too can get the job of your dreams.